introduction to programming in Emacs Lisp. So we'll skip all this for now, and then go straight to the sections. So this is introduction to programming in Emacs Lisp for people who are not programmers. Okay, let's check the preface. Uh, Most of the new Emacs integrated environment is written in the programming language called Emacs Lisp. The code written in this programming language is the software. That's the sets of instructions that tell the computer what to do when you give it commands. Emacs is designed so that you can write new code in Emacs Lisp and easily install it as an extension to the editor. Blue Emacs is sometimes called an extensible editor, but it does much more than provide editing capabilities. It is better to refer to Emacs as an extensible computing environment. However, that phrase is quite a mouthful. It is easier to refer to Emacs simply as an editor. Moreover, everything you do in Emacs, find the Mayan date and phases of the moon, simplify polynomials, debug code, manage files, read letters, write books. All these activities are kinds of editing in the most general sense of the word. You know, okay? Why? Why learn Emacs Lisp? Why learn Emacs Lisp? Although Emacs Lisp is usually thought of in association only with the Emacs, it is a full computer programming language. You can use Emacs Lisp as you would any other programming language. Perhaps you want to understand programming, perhaps you want to extend Emacs, or perhaps you want to become a programmer. This introduction to Emacs Lisp is designed to get you started, to guide you in learning the fundamentals of programming. The more and more importantly, to show you how you can teach yourself to go further. On reading this text, all through this document, you will see little sample programs you can run inside Emacs. If you read this document in info inside of GNU Emacs, you can run the programs as they appear. This is easy to do and is explained when the examples are presented. Alternatively, you can read this introduction as a printed book while sitting beside a computer running Emacs. This is what I like to do. I like printed books. If you don't have a running Emacs beside you, you can still read this book, but in this case, it is best to treat it as a novel or as a travel guide to a country not yet visited. Interesting, but not the same as being there. Much of this introduction is dedicated to walkthroughs or guided tours of code used in GNU Emacs. These tours are designed for two purposes. First, to give you familiarity with real working code you use every day, and second, to give you familiarity with the way Emacs works. It is interesting to see how a working environment is implemented. Also, I hope that you will pick up the habit of browsing through source code. You can learn from it and mine it for ideas. Having GNU Emacs is like having a dragon's cave of treasures. In addition to learning about Emacs as an editor, Emacs Lisp is a programming language. The examples and guided tours will give you an opportunity to get acquainted with Emacs as a Lisp programming environment. GNU Emacs supports programming and provides tools that you will want to become comfortable using, such as m dot, the key which invokes extra fine definitions command. You will also learn about buffers and other objects that are part of the environment. Learning about these features of Emacs is like learning new routes around your platform. finally, I hope to convey some of the skills for using Emacs to learn aspects of programming that you don't know. You can often use Emacs to help you understand what puzzles you or to find out how to do something new. This self-reliance is not only a pleasure but an advantage. Next, who are you? Sorry, who you are, from whom this is written. This text is written as an elementary introduction for people who are not programmers. If you are a programmer, you may not be satisfied with this primer. The reason is that you may have become expert at reading reference manuals and be put off by the way this text is organized. An expert programmer who reviewed this text said to me, I prefer to learn from reference manual. I dive into each paragraph and come up for air between paragraphs. When I get to the end of the paragraphs, I assume that the subject is done finished, that I know everything I need, with the possible exception of the case when the next paragraph starts talking about it in more detail. I expect that a well-written reference manual will not have a lot of redundancy, and that it will have excellent pointers to the one place where the information I want is. This introduction is not written for this person. Firstly, I try to say everything at least 3 times. First, to introduce it. Second, to show it in context. And third, to show it in different context or to review it. Secondly, I hardly ever put all the information about a subject in one place, much less in one paragraph. To my way of thinking, that imposes too heavy a burden on the reader. Instead, I try to explain only what you need to know at the time. Sometimes I include a little extra information so that you won't be surprised later when the additional information is formally introduced. When you read this text, you are not expected to learn everything the first time. Frequently, you need to make only a nodding acquaintance with some of the items mentioned. My hope is that I have structured the text and given you enough hints that you will be alert to what is important and concentrate on it. You will need to dive into some paragraphs. There is no other way to read them, but I have tried to keep down the number of such paragraphs. This book is intended as an approachable hill rather than as a daunting mountain. This book, Introduction to Programming in Emacs Lisp, has a companion document. See Emacs Lisp Reference Manual, Elisp. The reference manual has more detail than this introduction. In the reference manual, all the information about one topic is concentrated in one place. You should turn to it if you are like the programmer quoted above. And of course, after you have read this introduction, you will find the reference manual useful when you are writing your own programs. Lisp History. Lisp was first developed in the late 1950s at Massachusetts Institute of Technology for Research in Artificial Intelligence. The great power of the Lisp language makes it superior for other purposes as well, such as writing editor commands and integrated environments. Emacs Lisp is largely inspired by MacLisp, which was written at MIT in 1960s. It is somewhat inspired by Common Lisp, which became a standard in the 1980s. However, Emacs Lisp is much simpler than Common Lisp. The standard Emacs distribution contains an optional extension file called cllib.el that adds many common Lisp features to Emacs Lisp. A note for novices: if you don't know to know Emacs, you can still read this document profitably. However, I recommend you to learn Emacs if if only to learn to move around your computer screen. You can teach. yourself how to use Emacs with a built-in tutorial. To use it, type Ctrl HT. This means you press and release the Control key and the H at the same time, and then you press and release T. Uh, Also, I often refer to one of the Emacs standard commands by listing the keys which you press to invoke the command and then giving the name of the command in parentheses like this: meta control backslash indent region. What this means is that the indent region command is customarily invoked by typing meta control backslash. You can, if you wish, change the keys that are typed to invoke the command. This is called rebinding. See key maps. The abbreviation meta control backslash. Okay, let's see the key maps first. Key maps first. So key maps to record which keys call which commands. Okay, so this is the where you set the key bindings. Okay, that's good enough. Okay. How do I go back? Okay, back, back. Oh, okay. I think this one back, 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 back. We are back. So I want to know what this one is. So let's try go back in history to the last node you were at. Control O. Go forward in history is R. R to go forward in history and Control O to backward in history. Okay. Okay. So the abbreviation meta control backslash means that you type your meta key, control key, and backslash key all at the same time. On many modern keyboards, the meta key is labeled as Alt. Sometimes a combination like this is called a keyboard, since it is similar to the way you play a chord on a piano. If your keyboard does not have a meta key, the escape key prefix is used in place of it. In this case, meta control backslash means that you press and release your escape key and then type control key and then the backslash key at the same time. But usually meta control backslash means the control key along with the key that is labeled alt and at the same time press the backslash key. In addition to typing a lone key code, you can prefix what you type with Control U, which is called universal argument. A Control U key code passes an argument to the subset command, thus to indent a region of plain text by 6 spaces, mark the region, and then type Control U 6 meta control backslash. If you do not specify number, Emacs either passes the number 4 to the command or otherwise runs the command differently than it would otherwise. See numeric arguments in Emacs. Okay, I'm going to turn on this one. Okay, let's see here. Numeric arguments. Let's go back with Control O. If you are reading this in info, is if you are reading this in info using GNU Emacs, you can read through this old document just by pressing the space bar. So read through this old document. Oh, okay. Pressing the space bar. To learn about info, type Ctrl HI and then select info. Ctrl HI, Ctrl HI. Don't see anything happening. Okay. A note on terminology. When I use the word Lisp alone, I often am referring to the various dialects of Lisp in general. But when I speak of Emacs Lisp, I am referring to GNU is Emacs Lisp in particular. Thank you. My thanks to all who helped me with this book. My special thanks to Jim Blandy, Noah Friedman, Jim Kingdong, Ronald Eggard, Frank Ritter, Randy Smith, Richard M. Stallman, and Melissa Hoss. My thanks also goes to both Philip Johnson and David Stampy for their patient encouragement. My mistakes are my own. Robert J. Chassel, Robert Noob.org. Okay, so let's go back up. We finish this. Let's go to the next. So next is this pausing. Let's check what's up. Okay, yeah, this pausing. Okay, list processing. To the untutored eye, Lisp is a strange programming language. In Lisp code, there are parentheses everywhere. Some people even claim that the name stands for lots of isolated silly parentheses. But the claim is unwarranted. Lisp stands for list processing, and the programming language handles lists and lists of lists by putting them between parentheses. The parentheses mark the boundaries of the list. Sometimes a list is preceded by an apostrophe called a single quote in Lisp. Lists are the basics of Lisp. Okay, lists. What are the lists? Lists. In Lisp, a list looks like this: single quote, rose, violet, daisy, buttercup. This list is preceded by a single apostrophe. It could just as well be written as follows, which looks more like the kind of lists you are likely to be familiar with: rose, violet, daisy, buttercup. Elements of the list are the names of the four different flowers, separated from each other by white space and surrounded by parentheses, like flowers in a field with a stone wall around them. Numbered lists have numbers, other lists in them. Numbered numbers lists inside of lists. Lists can also have numbers in them, as in this list plus 2 2. This list has a plus sign followed by two twos, which each separated by white space. In Lisp, both data and programs are represented the same way. That that is, they are both lists of words, numbers, or other lists, separated by white space and surrounded by parentheses. Since a program looks like data, one program may easily serve data as data for another. This is a very powerful feature of Lisp. Incidentally, these two parenthetical remarks are not Lisp lists because they contain semicolon and dot as punctuation marks. Here is another list. This time with the list inside of it. So apostrophe, this list has a list inside of it. The component of this list or words this list has, and the list inside of it. The interior list is made up of the words a list inside of it. Lisp atoms. Okay, let's stop here and continue later.